Okay, so we already did one for Star Wars, and there is a new Star Trek TV show, Star Trek Picard, set to air this week. We thought it was high time to do a Star Trek tier video. Now, for this Star Trek tier video, we're only going to be ranking and looking at the Star Trek TV series. We're not going to be looking at the Star Trek movies. That's a completely different Star Trek tier list. This is the Star Trek TV show tier list. Without further ado, let's get it started. Where it all began with the original series, Star Trek. So, as is often the case with TV shows, if there's going to be spin-offs, the original has to be something good. It has to spark an interest in people, so they'll want to see it branch off into other directions and create new shows. And that is clearly the case with the original Star Trek. It was a groundbreaking show in the stories that it told and the vision for the future that it had with racial diversity and whatnot. And it just had iconic characters. Captain Kirk, Bones, Spock, Scotty, of course. And just amazing episodes. So I'm going to put the original Star Trek where it belongs, at the alpha level. Alright, so next we have the first follow-up to the original Star Trek series, and that is the animated series. Now, I know some of you might think that it's not canon, it's not continuity. That's not really what I was looking at. I just wanted to rank it as its own TV show. Well, for me, it was my introduction into Star Trek, and it's got everything the original had. Kirk, Bones, Scotty, Spock, the Enterprise. Problem is, it really doesn't feel like its own show. It just seems like a carbon copy of the original. So I'm going to put that at the beta level. Alright, next we'll move on to live action follow-ups with The Next Generation. And let's face it, these guys had some big shoes to fill. Bringing back Star Trek with a different set of characters and a different cast. And you know what? They filled them shoes. They had their own iconic characters. Picard, Riker, Data, Worf. And, I think they set the stage for Star Trek series. They set everything in place. So I'm going to put The Next Generation at the alpha level because they're definitely on par with the original Star Trek. Alright, next we come to my favorite Star Trek. I know what the hat says. We'll get to it later. Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Now, I already mentioned how Next Generation has some big shoes to fill. So did Deep Space Nine. You have to follow up the two of them, and you think it had any chances, but it knocked it out of the park with a show that had political intrigue, like characters that they developed over the seasons. Also had my favorite Star Trek woman, Jadzia Dax. I always wanted to count her spots. And, of course, iconic characters once again. Quark, Garrick, Cisco. And that's why I think Star Trek Deep Space Nine is the best of the best, so it is at the S level. All right. So next we come to Star Trek Voyager, and yes, that is what my hat says, Star Trek Voyager. So some of you might think that Star Trek Voyager is my top personal favorite, but that is just simply not the case. I don't think Star Trek Voyager was all that good. At least when you put it in terms of ranking, when you grade it and compare it to the other Star Trek series, it doesn't fare too well. I think one thing that goes against it is like fatigue, because this is the fourth Star Trek TV show, not counting the animated because that's kind of the same thing as the original. And you see the same formula recycled over and over again. It's like, let's put a focus on the doctor and the first officer and the guy who flies the ship and the chief engineer and the doctor. And in that way, it just doesn't feel like they've done anything original themselves. They had a premise that was pretty cool. It's like they're lost in space. 70 years from home. That's how long it'll take them to get home from the point in the galaxy that they were stranded in. and what kind of wacky adventures they'll have along the way, but that never really paid off and never really felt like they were on their own or that there were any consequences to that being on the other side of the universe. And, in the later seasons, oh God, did it struggle with, the 2 episodes about the Irish Village hologram program. Yeah, so I did like it, and it has its pluses. It has Kate Mulgrew as Captain Janeway, 7 to 9, the Doctor, but ultimately, I think it doesn't get above. So now we come to Star Trek Enterprise. Does anyone remember Star Trek Enterprise? I didn't think so. It's probably the most forgettable of the Star Trek series. This one was a prequel that took place 100 years before the original on a different Starship Enterprise that we had never heard about before, despite its importance to the forming of the Federation and every event that happens that, puts the original in the place that it is, happened in this one, but we never heard. Anyway, lots of continuity problems, and once again, this is the 5th one, and you see the same goddamn formula. Let's focus on the captain, the first officer, the chief engineer, the doctor. And it got old, and it got canceled. And for me, I don't think it was anything, I think it was just below average, so we're going to put it at the Delta level. All right, moving on to another prequel Star Trek TV show. All right, now we're moving on to Star Trek Discovery, the latest of Star Trek TV shows. Now, it's still ongoing. It's only had 2 seasons, but I'm going to judge it anyway. I mean, the original Star Trek only had 3. Enterprise had 4. Animated series had 1, and I've judged all of them. If my opinion changes on Star Trek Discovery from the next few seasons, watching them, then I'll let you know. I'm just going to tell you where I'm ranking it right now. And it doesn't do too bad, too good. I like how they kind of break with the formula where they're focused on one character mostly throughout the entire series. And, the captains, they've had this kind of rotational thing. They had one captain one season, half a season, and they kind of replace him with one of the main characters, and then they add another character, like a guest character is the captain, and then that was the case in season 2 where they had one captain. Like I said, there's not a real focus on the captains too much. They just rotate them out. The chief engineer we haven't been introduced to. Anthony Rapp's character is not the chief engineer, if you didn't know. He's got some kind of specialist, even though he kind of seems like he's the chief engineer. Like I said, they kind of broke with the formula, and they had some interesting storylines. You had the war with the Klingons. They had a mirror universe arch. And then last season, they had some kind of mystery with red lights appearing in space. It got a bit convoluted. That's what I liked about it. There are a few things I don't like about it. The main character, she's a snooze. I mean, she's just so damn boring. I know there's always this character on Star Trek that knows everything and can do everything good. Spock, Data. But sometimes, that works. With Spock, he had some sarcasm that came with him. And Data, he was trying to learn how to be human, so that was interesting. And there's nothing interesting about the Michael Berman character. I just find her so boring. So that's a definite notch against it. And everyone else is just so goddamn quirky. Like all the other characters, it's like they're all sarcastic and sassy, and it's like, oh God, can you have some characters who aren't like that? There's a scene in the last season when they're trying to figure something out, and it's like going around in a circle, and everyone's making these sarcastic and sassy remarks, and I was like, it was just that terrible for me. It's like one fucking character be the sarcastic, sassy type. Not every fucking one of them. So I think I'm going to be putting it at the average level. We'll see if my opinion ever changes. And that's it. That's the tier list. Just take one more look over it. So at the Delta level, we have Enterprise, which I just felt was a below average Star Trek show. At the C level, we have what I thought is an average Star Trek show, Star Trek Discovery. At the Beta level, which was good but not that good, we have the animated series and Star Trek Voyager. At the Alpha level is our top dogs, the original Star Trek and the Next Generation. And at the coveted S level, we have the best of Star Trek and Star Trek Deep Space Nine.